It is the winter season of the year, dark and chilly. Perhaps it is the winter season in your life, dark and chilly there too. Come into Christmas here. Let us light the warmth of Christmas and let it brighten our lives and world. Let us find in the dark corners of our souls the light of hope, a vision of the extraordinary in the ordinary. Let us find rest in the quiet of a holy moment to find promise and renewal. Let us find the child in each of us, the new hope, the new light born in us. Then Christmas will come. Then will magic return to the world. Good morning. Thanks for coming today. I'm grateful for your presence here, those joining us in person, as well as those who are following online. Whatever you're looking for in this space, that Christmas of joy and celebration, that Christmas of, like say, dark and chilliness, perhaps a few words of wisdom or a chance to connect with one another or to rest in the divine. Whatever has brought you into this space, I hope you'll find it. And I know that you'll find a warm community. This is the second week of Advent, and so in addition to lighting our chalice, we light the first 2 candles for Advent. Last week having been hope, and this week being peace. So may we have some peace and rest today in preparation for next week's carol service as well. But until then, let us sing ourselves. Well, firstly, actually, let's bring ourselves a little deeper into worship with these words of Greta Crosby. These are words, I think I referenced them last week. I turn to them quite regularly in the Christmas season. Winter dark tends to warm light, fire and candle. Winter cold to hugs and huddles. Winter want to gifts and sharing. Winter danger to visions, plans, and common endeavoring. Winter tedium to merrymaking. Let us praise winter, rich in beauty, challenge, and pregnant negativities. Greta Crosby's describing the sort of absence inherent in sort of winter and Christmas time, that because the sky is dark, we have to make our own light. Because the earth is cold, we have to make our own heat. And at that time, we also, when things seem sort of dark and uncertain, we provide the hope and the celebration. So those words of Greta Crosby and our chalice lighting from Ellen Johnson Fay. I'm afraid Aaron has asked for Sunday off. I think we'll allow him since he does so much spectacular music for us. So I'm afraid you have me for the hymns. We have some lovely pre-recorded music for the incidental pieces. Our first hymn, in addition to, of course, being something that I'll have to play for you, is one that we're probably unfamiliar with. So we'll work through it a little bit as well. This is in the Purple Book, number 103, Amanda Udis Keller's Mother Earth. So I'll read each line, and then if you want to sing it back to me. Mother Earth, beloved gardens, living treasure underfoot. Mother Earth, beloved gardens, living treasure underfoot. If you're uncertain with that, the next line is almost exactly the same, just slightly different. All our days you ground our being, sage and thistle, grass and root. So it's just that slight, difference at the end, but otherwise it's the same. You want to sing that together? All our days you ground our being, sage and thistle, grass and root. And then we have a bridge. Herbs to heal us, plants to feed us, land to till and tend and plow. Herbs to heal us, plants to feed us, land to till and tend and plow. And then the last line is again similar to the first two.
With the pendant deep as midnight north, we ask you be here now. With the pendant deep as midnight north, we ask you be here now.
How do we feel about that? I'll play it through completely once on the piano as well, so that should help. And then there are 5 verses, so if we don't know it at the start, we'll know it at the end. So this is Mother Earth, beloved garden, living treasure underfoot. Very good. Let us then join into a time of prayer with these words of Kenneth Patton, which is followed by our covenant, which is printed in your order of worship and will appear online. But first, these words. The days of the year have stiffened in ice, and darkness has grown upon the land. The season of cold and early dusk is upon us. The sun has retreated down the sky, the living green has forsaken the earth, and the leaves have fallen. Flowers no longer bloom, and the birds have fled south. People approach the shortened days with gladness, for the ancient fear is no longer in their faces. The heavy death upon the earth is no lasting peril, and the roots in the soil are only sleeping a long sleep. People hold the turning of the year as a promise, and the renewal of life is their solid hope. The time of returning light is known, and they ready their houses for the celebration. The sun will climb the heavens again, and the darkness will be pushed back each day. The months of snow will give way to the months of leaves, and petals will fall upon the earth. The young will be brought from the womb, and the shoot will burst from the seed. People will walk upon the greening grass, and their plowshares will divide the warming soil. In the midst of winter, the promise is given of the summer season, and in the midst of darkness, there comes the assurance of light. In the time of cold comes a messenger of warmth, and in the days of death, there is heard the good news of life. Amen. Please read with me our covenant. We gather here in sacred fellowship to witness the fullness of our lives and all life, to hold and be held, tell stories and listen, to be renewed and renew the world. We speak with care and patience. We act with gentleness and compassion. We forgive each other and ourselves. In faith that we build beloved community, we renew our covenant today. I'm afraid hearing that word forsaken earlier makes me aware that I have forsaken the story today. So we have a reading rather than a sort of more children's oriented. I was going to say children's oriented story, but I'll find another sort of term for us since it's something I think is quite dear, certainly to myself and I think many others here. But today it's a wonderful reading by Heather Buck entitled Distractions. Summer devours us with distractions, as near as the shrub rose at the door, the hubbub in the hall. But when the wounded sun lies in the earth, and snow is being unskeined from the sky in fold after fold, there is time to contemplate the winter in solitudes of snow, in the necessary distance of the human voice, in the silence of the empty hall. Wanting solitude so long, strange to find silence itself so noisy with sound. Does the ear seek the wind's complaint under the door, the little draught playing in the chandelier? Is it fear that twitches and writhes in the shadows, furnishes the dark corner of the hall with threats? And afterwards there's the inner debate, silence made loud with interminable discourse, nowhere to escape the trivial chattering, no landscape inviolate from the tip of one's own smoldering rubbish. Perhaps only the privileged find it, the mystic's void scraped clear to a flawless perfection, or the tortured few, in their suffering's grossest extremity, find they're no longer alone. Distractions by Heather Buck. I hope in this space you can feel no longer alone, if that is something that you have faced. For you have a chance to share, we all have a chance to share our joys and our sorrows, our trials, as well as our triumphs. If you want to share these publicly, please light a candle, and if you have a few words to say, come to the microphone, so those using the loop system, those online will be able to hear you. If you are online, please type into the chat box, and we will read your message out. You can light a candle in silence if you so wish. And as always, if you want to remain seated, holding your life in your heart, know that your presence here is enough. And I'll begin by lighting a candle of care for Thomas and Catherine, both who are unwell today. It was Thomas's Christmas fair at school on Friday, which was a lovely, albeit raucous affair, as they often are. I think he was really grateful to sort of get home and have a bit of calmness to the afternoon. And of course, but consequently, of course, has captured a bug. So do hold him and Catherine in your thoughts.
I light this candle for the people of Syria. They have endured 50 years of such a brutal regime, and I really hope that their expectations are not let down this time.
Sending so much love and light to my sister, who has been now in hospital for a month with a resurgence of her nasty, aggressive cancer, which she's been fighting for 10 years and more. She's always positive, always cheerful. Sometimes I can't phone her because she's forgotten to turn the sound on of her phone. So in those cases, we communicate by text. She's in the wonderful hospital, almost as good as the Christie, down in Salisbury. So sending her love and light.
This is just a little candle for Aaron, who says he hopes there's time to sneak a candle in. Well, of course there is. He's very grateful for the time off and in allowing him to reconnect with his old hobbies. So, I hope you're enjoying yourself, kid.
Let us join together in singing our second hymn, number 27 in the Purple Book, Dark of Winter, Soft and Still, by Shelley, Jackson Denham. Our second reading today comes from John Hanley Morgan. The gray clouds cluster, colder blows the wind. Darkness comes early to the land. It is December. The snows of winter gleam, sleet's iron fist descend. We move in darkness, solstice. Therefore make ready with the light, light of star, light of candle, firelight, lamplight, love light. These little lights can guide us and bring a steady peace as we move toward Christmas morn, enjoy again the sun's release. A poem by John Henley Morgan. Let us return to a time of prayer with these words from Edward Hayes. The earth around my home is now locked in a winter wrap of bone-chilling snow and ice. Water, once clear and liquid, a joyous, flowing community, is now frozen into crystals of ice. Recently, in humanity's long history, there has arisen an isolation, a separation of those who share common human flesh and bone. While once upon a time we gathered joyfully in families, tribes, and clans, we now so often live divorced from earth and from each other, with loneliness as our only company. Isolation as ice-olation, frigid to human flesh, cold and lifeless to the touch, untrue to our most basic unity, community. And whenever I act single-handedly, apart from an awareness of all I know, I somehow become a divine disciple. And tribeless, oh God, how can I tread the path that you have designed as a companion course? The wisdom so divine in your Genesis words, spoken to perfectly made, fully ultimated human. It is not good for one to be alone. And so let us enter into a period of silence for reflection, meditation, contemplation, and personal prayer.
Bella, bring a torch, come swiftly and run. Christ is born, tell the folk of the village. Jesus is sleeping in his cradle. Oh, beautiful is the mother. Oh, beautiful is her son. Hasten now, good folk of the village. Hasten now, the Christ child to see. You will find him asleep in the manger. Quietly come and whisper softly, hush, hush. Peacefully now he slumbers, hush, hush. Peacefully now he sleeps.
I want to give a very quick call. I was going to say shout out to the DeVries, brothers Aaron and Ben. They are Canadian musicians who manage sort of what they, I don't know if it's a fully sort of set up company, sort of production company called Badgerland Records. And about every year they produce a Christmas album just with their, with people they know and other musicians. The music, all of which is sort of covered by what's called Creative Commons, which means it's sort of available for people to share in forms such as this. So it's just sort of a fantastic exploration. You can find their music and sort of listen to a lot of sort of really interesting takes on traditional and well-known songs and tunes, as well as some really interesting original compositions as well. So I'm really grateful for the music that they've made available, which we use today for our interlude and our postlude as well. But now it's your chance to sing. We turn to number 260, this time in the Green Book, Henry Longfellow's "'Tis winter now, the fallen snow has left the heavens all coldly clear." I know it's not quite snow for us, it's more rain, but at least in spirit, let us sing this. is somewhere deep in the recesses under my bed, which is of course where we store our Christmas items, a memento from what might be described as my previous life, my time in music before I began sort of ministry work. It might not look sort of like much, and I don't have it here today, so so it's even less impressive. but there's a lovely and I think sort of compelling story behind it. It is just a small swatch of bright orange fabric, and it was something that was given to me by a volunteer when I was in New York City nearly 20 years ago, back in I think it was 2005. I was at university, and we had this sort of wonderful opportunity to perform in the big city, so we made our way down. And this, very much by a great happenstance and coincidence, was I believe it was in February, when Christo and Jean-Claude had set up an art installation in Central Park called The Gates. Does anyone here remember or sort of familiar with this? Like I say, it's almost 20 years ago now. Christo, if you're unfamiliar, was quite a prominent artist in the 20th century, known particularly for what were called wrappings, where he took the Reichstag in Germany and wrapped it completely, sort of, it looked like a big present. So he did that with many other buildings, setting up this sort of very great, sort of influential, huge public installations. The Gates, like I say, was in New York City, completely self-funded, which helped sort of tamper down some of the controversy around it, which I'll get to in a moment. But it was made up of 7,503 huge gates. These huge sort of orange pillars with a beam going across, and then this sort of lovely fabric, coming down partway over the top. Spread out throughout the whole of the park. It's a huge number, and obviously required a huge amount of financial investment from himself and volunteer work from people who are sort of passionate about his art. I can forget sort of how massive Central Park is in New York City, but these 7,503 gates were stretched out over 23 miles of footpaths, dotted all around the area. Beautiful bright orange poles and lintels, sheets coming down. You could hurry, just sort of run through them, as I'm sure people did, as the New Yorkers did, or if you were a tourist, you might want to actually just take your time and calmly walk through them. Experiencing it myself, it was quite lovely to just see the wind sort of brushing them along. And they were only there, like I talked about that sort of happenstance, they were only there for 15 days, so it was quite spectacular to be there sort of in that very brief moment. They were inspired by the Japanese shrine, the Fushimi Inari Taisha, which is outside of Kyoto, which has similarly thousands upon thousands of what they call torii, the sort of gates, having been built there over a period of 1,400 years. The tories being the symbolism marking the entrance into a sacred space. So there's very intentional notion for Christo with his artwork, that you're walking through this sort of sacredness of Central Park. Like I mentioned, there was some controversy. It was quite bad. People were upset that it cost so much money. He assured them that it was sort of, like I say, self-funded. Also, the strangeness was the fact that it was in February. I think February is. Who here likes February? Should I just ask? It's quite often seen as a bit of a grisly month. It's a bit, if you have an area that has snow, like in New York City, it'll be slush by then. It'll be cold. The sun will be coming out a bit more, but not really necessarily too much to make a difference. When I first moved here, the first few years I suffered from seasonal affective disorder, and for me it was absolutely the worst in February. That was the most challenging month for me to sort of get through those early years when I had moved here. So installing this, for 15 days in the middle of the worst month seemed like a really strange move on Christo's part. There aren't any leaves on the trees. What's up with that? And yet somehow, actually, that was what made it so captivating and so compelling, was amidst this sort of gray and dreariness of the world at that point to have these sort of really bright marks of human intervention. Like we say, Greta Crosby's creating the joy and creating the celebration was what made this artwork sort of really stand out, as a lot of his sort of awareness of aesthetics clearly proves. Central Park itself has a lot of aesthetic work built into it. When it was built in 1857 by Frederick Olmsted and Calvert Vaux, it was supposed to be inspired by nature, and there's this great notion of the public park system at that time having been designed to both obviously be clearly invented by people, very much a sort of constructed environment, and yet sort of mimicking or being intentionally natural, almost a tropleo, if you will, sort of a fooling the eye in a sense, but on writ large, writ over acres upon acres upon acres. It was inspired by nature. It was also intended, the park, to be a sort of democratic exercise, though similarly it had its own controversy being built so far north of the city at that point. It's described as Central Park, and we see it very clearly in the middle of Manhattan, but at the time, it wasn't, the city wasn't nearly that developed that far north. The entrances, as I mentioned, this notion of sort of being presented as this sort of democratic statement were not to be too fancy, not to be too gaudy, but were given titles such as the Mariner's Entrance, just as an opportunity to recognize the sort of real humbleness and humanity that was supposed to be part of this project. Again, we forget just the notion of public parks was quite new at this point. This notion of having sort of public space, which was there for the betterment of people who were facing oppression and difficulty under the Industrial Revolution. Intended to be democratic, but would we suggest that it is? It would involve the destruction of a village called the Seneca Village, which is unfortunately something that was done sort of fairly glibly at the time, still happens nowadays when we consider such actions as being for quote-unquote the better good. Though we do nowadays try to be a bit more equitable in our care of those who are marginalized groups. Do we look to nature when we do this? When we're trying to sort of, like the public parks project, like the sort of naturalness of these tories, sort of marking. The thing about the tories that I absolutely love is tories, I should specify, the Japanese shrine entrance, not the political party. I'm not speaking from. The thing about these sort of entrances is the fact that there isn't much difference visually between one side to the other, and yet you are supposed to sort of recognize the sacredness that's going on. And we look within our faith to this notion of sacredness amongst the whole world. Some divine notion that extends to every person. For some people, the notion that sort of a Gaia theory, belief in the sort of divinity of the natural world. Nature, though, can be quite violent. So when we look to develop our sort of moral stances or our ethics as people, as we look to sort of recognize ways to combat injustice, to care for the marginalized, sometimes we can be tempted to discard that sort of connection to nature, seeing how violent it can be with the food cycle, with the weather, as we've witnessed just these past few days. But our nature, and science affirms this as well, is full, both from a scientific sense and I think from a spiritual sense personally, to be full of empathy and compassion, to be full of seeking for justice and care for people who have less than us, for people who have faced oppression and injustices. Thinking of Heather Buck's notion of distractions, winter gives us this space where we can truly encounter and have an imagination for new relationships, for new ways of being, which might perhaps look to nature or might perhaps look beyond nature, to care for marginalized groups, to imagine a form of compassionate justice that is far beyond any reality that we can imagine. And John Henry Morgan's reading reminds us as well that we are to bring that light, the light of star, the light of candle, a firelight, a lamplight, and a love light, and I would hope as well a light of peace. So here we are, similar to last week, talking about both the notion of patience as well as action, both quietness and uncertainty, but the certitude of faith that we can be the people that bring love and light and peace to the world. Amen. A few notices before we sing our final hymn. If you need to speak with me, you can speak with me here in person, or you can write to minister@crossstreetchapel.org.uk. We're grateful for volunteers. If you are, I don't have the set of readings for next week. Next week is our carols and reading service. But if you are interested and or willing to give a reading next week, please let me know. If you have just joined us, you can join our mailing list by writing to minister@crossstreetchapel.org.uk. We're grateful for any contributions which can assist the mission of our chapel. You can donate online at justgiving.com/crossstreetchapelmanchester, or you can email me about setting up a standing order. And tea and coffee is available after the service. Many thanks to Richard, who's volunteered to help with that today. As I said, next week is the big celebration of carols and readings. The week after is our Blue Christmas service. So we tried to get both sides of the coin, a chance to sort of celebrate and rejoice, and a chance to sort of have a more reflective acknowledgement of the issues and challenges that people face at Christmas time. The 22nd, the Blue Christmas service, is followed by our Faith in Life program, which is an opportunity for us to delve more deeper into personal issues, sharing in a small group, a small confidential group. So do join us if you wish to join with that. So that's the 22nd. And then there's no Christmas Day service, which would normally be Wednesday. There's also no New Year's Day service, since that'll be on Wednesday as well. And Peart, the Reverend Dr. Ann Peart will be leading the service for the 29th, and then I will be away one further week, but there'll be more information on that closer to the date. Are there any announcements or notices from the congregation? Let us then sing our final hymn, number 226, Lloyd Stone's Song of Peace, hymn number 226. Thank you, Emma, for the IT. How's it been today? Right, thank you. And thank you, Richard, for the tea and coffee that we're about to enjoy. Thank you, Sonia, for helping to set up and for greeting. And thank you to everyone for creating and sharing worship today. We close with a brief word from Emily Dickinson. Winter under cultivation is as arable as spring. Amen.
Gotta notice when you fade away at Christmas. Would you call across the sky to say hello? Does tradition keep the comfort? Does it cover us? Is there space to name when we want something more? Have you been silent, tired of trying when you feel alone? With no home to go to on Christmas. When we've been denied the things we need to carry us, will we bend or will we fortify the walls? Have you been waiting for me to say that I've been meeting you? I can't promise to, and I'm sorry. We are feeble people. We are folks in need, eaten by our weaknesses, holding us and haunting us. We are feeble people. We are folks in need. Meet us in our weaknesses, save us from ourselves. How do you hold